How are you, people? It's a wonderful day for golf, right? Or anything else. I was hoping to have. Don't go anywhere. I was hoping to have another microphone, but I guess I have to stand here, and you know, this is supposed to be my spot in front of you. Is this all right? Yeah. Okay. Good. How about my English? Do you understand what I'm saying? Because English, I have to tell you one thing. English is my third language. So back home in Finland, where I was born and raised, we have two official languages, and then everybody, when you go to school, all the students, they have to learn at least two foreign languages. So all the children, when they leave the school, whenever that happens, they speak at least four languages, and it's a kind of a European thing. We have two little boys at home. I have to run immediately after this because the older one has a birthday party, and we take all his Australian friends to the ice. So it's going to be on skates, which is a kind of a fun thing to do. I don't know how many of you can skate, but if you can't, go and try. It's good fun. So both of the boys are trilingual, so they speak fluently at the age of 4 and 7, 3 languages, and they don't really care, you know, what the language is as soon as people understand what they want to say. And it's a beautiful thing to see how the young brain really doesn't make any difference regarding, you know, what are the languages that we are speaking. The most important thing is that people understand what you want to tell them. The other day I had a Skype call to my friend. We've been here only for seven months right now. So this older boy who has a birthday today came behind me. I was chatting with a friend in Poland, a very good old friend of mine who spoke English. So he saw my friend David, saw this little guy's face there and said, "Hey, hi Otto, how are you doing?" And so he was responding in English fluently, and so they had a little chat. And then David asked that, so Otto, how many languages do you speak now? And Otto said 3. And David said, so what are those? And Otto said, I speak Croatian with my mother, because she's Croatian. And I speak Finnish with my father, because he's Finnish. And I speak Australian with my friends. So for him, the language is not English, it's Australian, because that's where we are. We are very happy to be here, and I'm very proud to be part of this university and do things at the Konski Institute for Education, what we do. Thank you very much for the introduction. You probably forgot the most important thing that I would have liked to hear. The first thing is that I am a teacher. That was my first job, and back home in Finland we say, because it's a very noble profession, we say that once a teacher, always a teacher, you cannot escape. So I was teaching mathematics and science for many years, middle school and high school in Helsinki, and then training teachers to teach those same things, and then moved on. Then these things that you heard came a little bit later, but I always want to remind people that teaching is really my first job. Raise your hand if you're a teacher. So obviously you're in the right conference, because if none of you are teachers, then I'm either wrong place or you are all in the wrong place. Okay, so I'll speak briefly to you about a couple of things. One is that because I've had a privilege to work around the world really and look at education systems everywhere. Most recently I spent 5 years in the United States, but I'm fine now. And I've been working with the European Commission and the Finnish government and many other places, so I have a kind of an idea of what's happening. And so what I want to tell you is not about education in general. If you have any questions, if you want to know more, I'm very happy to have a conversation. But I raised this question that what's happening within the teaching profession? You know, how the teachers, our colleagues around the world, experience their work right now, and what are those things that have changed? And then I come to this question of autonomy. Because the autonomy is my experience is an often misunderstood thing. That people, when we say that teachers need more autonomy, that they understand that we should let teachers do whatever they want to do. And there's not really evidence at all that this would do any good for anybody. It's just by letting people do whatever they want to do. And that's not what we are talking about here. The autonomy within the teaching profession is something very different. And I'm offering you a little bit, probably a new concept, new way to think about the autonomy. And when we are talking about that, I think it's very important that we are clear about this. Does this seem like a plan? Okay, let's see. I'm going to post this presentation also on my website and pass it through in social media, Twitter. So if you feel like there's something you want to take a look again, you can find it over there. So let's take three things really. What has changed in the teaching profession if we look at the different countries, not only here in Australia or this part of the world, but globally. Of course, there are many things that have kind of would deserve time to conversation or more kind of an in-depth look at. But I have chosen you three. And the first one of them is the how people experience as teachers, how teachers experience how their work is valued, what they do. And this is a fairly alarming situation. There's not really much comparable data available for this, but this comes from probably the best one and most recent one. There will be kind of updates or refreshed data similar to this later this year, but this is what we have now. So what you see there is the number of countries that a few years ago took part in the OECD Teaching and Learning international survey that was comparing middle school teachers. This is very important. We are not looking at all the teachers. We are looking at those teachers who are teaching different subjects in the middle school, normally children between 13 and 15, 16 years old. And they were asked all kinds of questions. And one of the questions was exactly this, that I think that the teaching profession is valued in a society where I work. And just take a look at this. You will see the red, of course, is a kind of alarming color, because it means that the more red you have in your country, the less teachers there were who felt that what they do in the school is really valued. And there are some countries like Sweden, for example, lower there, where only 6% of teachers who responded to this survey felt that what they do in a school is valued. Okay, so the world is very different in terms of how teachers experience what they do in their work every day. And you can just imagine being a typical teacher in Sweden, for example, if you have this feeling that what we do here is not really important. It's not something that the society, parents and politicians and others really see a kind of a meaningful thing. Then there are those countries like Singapore, South Korea, Finland. Mexico is a kind of a strange, I never understood. I've been doing a lot of work in Mexico that do teachers really feel that way? But certainly some of those countries over there, then you see Australia is fairly high there, but in this country almost 40%, and more than 60% of teachers say that they don't think that what they do is valued by others. Do you think it's right? That's something that is a very important and kind of a burning thing around the world. That teachers, this doesn't mean that teachers wouldn't be happy with their work. That's another one. If we look at the jobs, their satisfaction to what they do, that's a completely different picture. But I think it's important to keep in mind that we need to work more and try to help the society to pay more respect and show value what the teachers are doing. So some of those things, if you're thinking about what is behind this, what is driving this thing, one thing, of course, is the pay. And across the board, internationally, teachers are not paid how they should be paid. There are some countries like Cyprus and Spain and Singapore where the teachers' pay is, and Canadian teachers are fairly well paid. But overall, the teachers' pay is lacking behind, particularly comparing what they're expected to do right now. Then the other one is trust. That this is a common thing that many teachers around the world are saying, that they feel that they are not trusted in what they do, that there's too much control and accountability and all kinds of measurements and tests to make sure that their teachers are doing right thing. And that's, of course, is one way eating away of this sense of being a professional. And then the autonomy is another one. And this is what many teachers around the world are asking for. More freedom, professional freedom to do things, not only to teach how they want to teach, but think about what to teach and with whom and when are very important things. I get back to this autonomy thing a little bit later, because as I said, that it's not simple like this to say that give them more freedom and things will improve. It doesn't happen like this. And there's a lot of research and evidence also that just simply autonomy as freedom to do things as you like is not a good idea. Then the other one is the other trend kind of globally that we see is the changing students. And this is obviously no-brainer. Everybody knows that the students are very different today than they were 5 years ago or 10 years ago. But what are we talking about when we're looking at these differences? How are they different? Some people speak about millennials, that they have different ways of thinking and behaving and acting and using information and getting connected and many other things. But then there are those who look more about for example, the well-being side of the students, which is becoming an issue. And let me show you a couple of things about that, because I think that the changing well-being profile of young people really around the world is something that most teachers feel that they are not prepared to cope with that, because it's often seen as a health or social work issue rather than pedagogy or teaching and learning issue. We are part of here at the Konski Institute of the larger study that is done. We do it together with Harvard University and the University of Alberta in Canada, and it's called Growing Up Digital. And this is the early data from this Canadian survey that they did a few years ago. They were basically asking thousands of teachers across the province there that what type of changes they have seen in their own students in their classrooms during the last 3 to 5 years. Okay, and if you look at these infographics, you see that 85% of these respondents, these teachers, say 85 to 90% say that they have seen psychological, social, or behavioral changes among their own students in the classroom. And when we go deeper in this data and try to understand what is there, the picture is becoming really grim. And many teachers are raising their hands up and say that I don't know anymore what to do with this thing, because the funding and the support that the schools are providing is not there. I don't know, have you experienced the same thing, that the students they have more difficulties to concentrate on things and reading and getting things done, and they are more anxious and stressed, and this is not only here, it's around the world really. And this of course raises a question that, so what does it mean for teachers? What should we do? And that's why I'm going to show you this image as well. This is of course a kind of my own kind of a rough idea, rough global picture of where we are and what's going on. So my argument is that during the last 20 years we have really seen the decline of the students, both mental health and physical health as well. And these are some of those symptoms that you see over there that are often associated with these problematic things. So there's not really many people who can disagree with this thing. I've been showing and talking about this around the world and speaking with the pediatricians and many others, and everybody says that this has been the trend. This has been the trend in Finland as well, as it has been here in Australia and in the Asian countries as well. One of the new symptom there is the lack of sleep. And this is a kind of a new thing that was not there really 10, 15 years ago. And not only the amount of sleep, but the quality of the sleep. And that's something, and it's our problem as well. The adults, we parents experience the same thing. But when you put this in the lives of young people who are in a school or students who are about to study, and if you're beginning to lose the sleep, that's where the problems begin. And that's why I often say when I moved here, there were a lot of questions about homework, because some people have heard that place like Finland, there's not really much homework that the students or pupils do, which is not true. This is one of these myths. But I said that I'm a very strong advocate of homework. Actually, I have this 2-hour homework standard for every child every day that they have to do, and they have to do it well. And we have to make sure that every single child does it. And when people ask me that, so what is this 2 hours that they need to do? I said, sleep. So put them to bed like 2 hours before that they normally do. Just teach them how to sleep well, because this is about almost every child now. In Australia here, the average amount of sleep among teenagers is about 7.5 hours. And if you ask any pediatrician or child health expert, what do they say? They say that teenagers should sleep at least 9 or 10 hours. That's right, okay? So there's this big gap, and if it's a continuous thing, the kids don't sleep or students don't sleep. It doesn't matter how good teachers we have or how good the curriculum is or how hard we try, because they just they just can't do those things. Then of course the question is that, so are there other trends that have really maybe behind this? And we cannot of course prove yet, but we're going to do that with our research, hopefully. That there is not just a correlation between some things, but some of those things that you can easily see happening is the screen time. And now here in Australia and Finland, can you imagine that there are thousands and tens of thousands of young people who spend much more time with the screens than they sleep every day? Okay? Here in Australia, it's about 9 hours, 8 or 9 hours of screen time on average with the young teenagers, which is more than the time that they sleep every day. And that's the issue that we need to really work with teachers. Teachers see those things every day in their schools, and parents see those kids when they go home. So this is something that is a new thing in this changing thing. And of course, you may speculate that is it this line there, 2011, 2012, when the smartphones really became a kind of a common thing, and pockets or bags of every young person, or something else. We need to talk about that. Then the third one, and this is my last really these global things, then I speak a little bit about this autonomy thing, is how teachers are trained, or how they are about to be trained. And for a long time around the world, the teaching profession has been seen as almost like a technical thing. That is undergraduate. If it's a university training, it's an undergraduate-based program. Not much research or doing research or scientific stuff. It's more about practical things and across the board. So what's happening now is that many countries, including here in Australia, and certainly many countries in Europe, are thinking about upgrading teacher education into what could be a clinical preparation of teachers, a little bit like medical doctors, you know what I mean? That the training would be based on, just like the medical doctors learn, and that there's a lot of bedside learning that the doctors do, that the teachers should also be educated and trained and prepared in the laboratory schools or particular teacher training schools. Teacher training schools. Sorry, I get so excited about this. So no tweeting, no pictures anymore. So let me show you this model. And again, this is something that we could spend more time to talk about. But this is the new kind of a new idea of the initial the education of teachers within the university. So this all happened. The main idea here is that teachers should be prepared and trained in research universities. And this is the model that Finland has, and now some other countries have, that the only place where teachers are trained is the research universities. And teacher education, there you see in the Faculty of Education is always located, this DOTE, the Department of Teacher Education, is within the Faculty of Education. This is a very unique, very rare arrangement around the world. There are not very many places that have organized initial teacher education like this. And then you have these clinical training schools or teacher training schools that are just like the teaching hospitals in the universities, where most of the training, practical training of new teachers is taking place. Then all the students do the research, academic research, just like lawyers and doctors and everybody else. It's the same requirement and same level research. And then the subject faculties, like Faculty of Science or Humanities, is working together with the other faculty, the Faculty of Education and Department of Teacher Education, to provide the mathematical or foreign languages, other studies over there. So this is what we are seeing now in many other places, to try to kind of upgrade the initial preparation and degree of teachers, so that teachers would really feel like, as they do in Finland, that the primary school teacher's degree is the same level as a lawyer and doctor and everybody else. And that has been the kind of aim to do that, but also to try to make sure that the teaching profession would be a clinical profession. which is different than it would be a technical, just passing, doing what somebody else has decided, ask you to do. So now I try to take a proper drink of this. Okay, I have some little activity for you. As I said, that there are a lot of myths and facts and fake news actually about education, but particularly when it comes to Finland. I have three things that I would like you to think about. So what you need to do is to make your own judgment whether the statement that you're going to see is a fact or whether it's a myth. Are you with me? Are you awake? Okay, let's see. Let's take the first one. So I'm asking you to judge whether this statement that says that the most important single factor in improving quality of education is teachers, whether this is a fact or whether this is a myth. Think about it right now for a moment, and then turn to the person who is nearest to you and say whether you think that this is a fact or myth, and very briefly why you think like this. Half a minute for this. Okay, very good. Thank you, people. Thanks so much. So let's see what you think. If you think that this is a fact, put your hand up. Okay, just look around. Okay, and just to make sure that we have everybody voting, if you think that this is a myth, put your hand up. It's almost 50-50. Okay, so what do we do now? Yeah, do you want to have a right answer? It's a myth. Yeah, and it's a very, 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 very dangerous myth. And we often hear this by politicians and pundits and journalists and others saying that because the teachers are so important, that's why we have to get rid of the bad teachers and find the best possible people to teach, because teachers make the whole difference. But that's a lie. It doesn't have any support from anywhere. If we change this a little bit, if we say that the most important single in-school factor, then we are closer to the truth. But everybody knows, and this could be a longer conversation. But what we know from research during the last 50 years, really, about what affects students' learning and what determines whether they learn or not, 2/3 about that is lying outside of the school, 2/3. And only one third of the variation of students' learning outcomes that are measured in a school is about school factors, including teachers. So that's why the biggest factor, really, if we really want to change the way the kids learn, we have to change the outer school factors. The healthcare and free time and other activities and what the homes do and early childhood education and parental leave and all those things that Scandinavian countries have been very good in doing. So that's why we need to, as teachers, we need to know this. And whenever we hear about this, people saying that teachers are the most important thing, we say, tell me where you get that fake news from, because it's not true. Then the other one, this is your next one, school systems that grant more autonomy to schools to define and elaborate their curricula and assessments tend to perform better than systems that do not grant such autonomy. What do you think about this? I'll give you half a minute to turn to your neighbor and decide what you think. All right. What do you think? I have one more thing coming, so I'm going to save that for you. But Raise your hand if you think that this is true. This is a fact. Okay? Most of you. And of course, this is a fact. So this is based on the OECD's global international comparable evidence directly from their work. But again, as this statement is saying, we need to be clear about what do we mean by autonomy. And in this statement, the autonomy really refers to the teacher's agency on what they teach and how they teach and how the students are assessed. And that's where the countries are very, very different around the world. One more. I'm going to give you one more and then we move on. And this is the third one. The quality of an education system cannot exceed the quality of its teachers. Take a half a minute and decide what you think. Okay, thank you. Thanks so much. Have you heard this before? Anybody heard this before? Okay. Again, this is very, very widely used argument around the world often. Raise your hand if you think that this is a fact. Okay. Raise your hand if you think that this is a myth. All right. It is a myth. Okay, and this is often used by, and still actively used by, consulting companies like McKinsey and OECD, World Bank, and many others are saying the same thing. The danger with this type of statement is that it's so common sense, right? It's so easy to say, of course, this is the thing. But the problem with this type of statement, I don't know exactly what you were talking about, what you think about. But for me, the hardest thing with this type of statement is that it's purely a human capital view. It assumes that the quality, that the human capital quality, or the quality of teaching is about individuals only, and it's not. Because teaching for me, and I'm saying this as a teacher for many years, teaching is a team sport, right? And just like in a rugby, you guys like rugby here? We don't do rugby in Finland, but we do ice hockey a lot. And everybody, if you know anything about hockey, you know that hockey teams that have the best players in the world will rarely win the trophies. The teams that have the best spirit and coaching and leadership and commitment to help one another to do better, they win the trophies. And it's exactly the same thing in a school. If you work in a school where the spirit, the culture of the school is to help every other people to be better than they could be without you. That's what makes a huge difference. You don't need to be the best teacher available, but you need to understand the same things. And I have been very upset about these types of statements because it takes away this whole collaborative dimension of teachers' work that is so important. So when you hear things like this, just say that fake news doesn't exist. Okay, so let me show you very quickly where this leads to, this whole thing. There has been a conversation globally around the world, including here in Australia, that we need to get the best and the brightest into teaching. That's a kind of a remedy for this prevalent low quality of teachers in our schools around the world. Okay. And again, this is something that, of course, this is what we need to do. But this is said by many organizations because of this myth that they believe that we were discussing earlier. For example, the OECD has been saying and still saying the same thing, that finding the best and the brightest in the teaching profession is the key, that this is how we can move forward. Some years ago, I started to kind of think about where this all comes from. So I had a lot of conversations with people in this organization and many others, and often people say that this is what Finland does, I said, okay, tell me more about what Finland does, because I happen to be from there. I said, well, you guys, you select only the best 10% of the candidates to become teachers. And I said, how do you know that? Well, I've read stories in the newspaper. Well, okay, let me show you what the real story is, and it's nothing like this. So I'm going to show you some data. This is from this is a national number of applicants into the master's degree based primary school teacher education program in Finland since year 2000. So you see that the numbers are quite high. The country that has 5 million people has about 8,000 to 9,000 applicants every year to become primary school teachers, and we only train teachers basically exactly the number that is needed, unlike here in New South Wales where you have 50,000 teachers trained but cannot find a job, and I think the intake is 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 teachers every year. That is a ridiculous number. I don't know why you guys do that, but just take a look at this. In a country that has well-managed, much better managed kind of a teacher, the teacher preparation system, we only take 800 teachers because that's what the country needs. Okay, so all of these teachers will find a job and they will be happy ever after. Okay. But if you look at this one, then of course you do your quick. Even if you're not math teacher, you see that 800, 8,000. Yeah, it's a roughly 1 out of 10, right? So it must be true that, the best and the brightest go into teaching. So wait a minute, how do you know who these 800 people are? Okay, are they really the ones that have the highest marks in English or Finnish and math and science and other things, or are they selected in some other way? So this is exactly what I wanted to check in one cohort, and this is interesting. This is a cohort that is going to graduate now next month at the University of Helsinki. Okay. So I'm going to show you something, and let's not get into the technical details. These numbers here indicate the students' final high school examination score. It's a little bit similar to what you have here, the HSC? Yeah, something like this, okay? So 100%, 100 points is the best one. It's like the highest you can get, and 0 is nothing, okay? So I divided these accepted students into deciles, okay? So we can see how many students in each decile there are among those who were accepted into the program. And then we have the percentage of accepted students. You understand this? Okay? So I'm going to show you of course, this is the best and the brightest, even 20% could say that, okay, these are really the bright kids in the examination. So they have really high scores academically. We don't know anything about them otherwise, but academically they are strong people. So in that university 5 years ago, when these students started graduating now, there were 2,300 applicants. Okay, 2,300 people applied to 120 spots in a primary school teacher education program at the Faculty of Education. Okay, so really rough, kind of a tough competition to get in. Again, this is about 5% acceptance rate. So this university could even kind of a cherry pick really the best students there if they wanted to have everybody in this top decile academically. But this is not what it looked like, and it's the same profile right now. So this shows you the kind of academic profile of that cohort that was accepted 5 years ago. Okay, and it's nothing like the best and the brightest. It's a completely different type of thing, because it's only, this shows that the university only took about a quarter of those that could be labeled as the best and the brightest, and all the rest are coming with the lower grades. Interesting thing is that one quarter of those accepted come from the bottom half of the academic profile, if we use the high school leaving examination as such. Why do you think the research university like Helsinki would ever do anything like this? Who are those people? Who are they? And what is the university's interest to accept them rather than take really the best and the brightest? Yeah, they are those who come with already some qualities that are needed to be a successful teacher. They are often athletes, or they may be people with a music background or something like this. Okay, So it's a very, very important, it's not about finding the best and the brightest, but it's about how do we select, how do we find those people into teaching who are about to be successful teachers for life. And it's a very hard thing to do. So if you want to read more about this, there's a lot of literature now available about Australia and Finland and many other countries, but this is a book I was writing with my colleagues about how this whole thing happens and why is it done like this. It's extremely important in this conversation of how do we prepare teachers. Now let me come to the closure here and show you something. So I'm offering to this conversation of what are we talking about when we talk about autonomy within the teaching profession, this concept of collective autonomy. It's a little bit different thing, and it includes some ingredients that we need to be aware of. Basically, what the collective autonomy within the teaching profession, in our work, what it means is that we have more autonomy from the bureaucracy, okay? So we have more freedom from the, those departments and directions over there, but we have less freedom from one another. That's what makes it collective. So we have more autonomy from the bureaucracy and authority, but less freedom from one another. And this is something that I'm offering a kind of a leading idea for the conversations about what this autonomy is. And now, of course, we need to be clear about what is this autonomy that we are about to have through this collective autonomy mentioned earlier. The most important things for the work of the teacher, according to the international practice and research, are those three things. Of course, the first one is that teachers need to have access in planning and deciding what do they teach to children. Not entirely like they can teach anything, but they need to feel that they have the authority to design and prepare and plan their own curriculum. This is what happens in Finland, and this is what is happening now increasingly around the world, that teachers are engaging not just delivering the curriculum, but translating the framework, the broader framework into something that they can work in their schools. In Finnish schools, for example, every single school has its own curriculum prepared by these teachers. It can vary from one school to another, but all the teachers, they have an ownership and commitment to this curriculum that they have created. It's a very, very important thing. Then, of course, the pedagogy, that is probably the most common thing around the world, that teachers can basically decide how they want to teach. But this is, again, very, very important, that the education policies and directives should not limit the choice that teachers have to decide how they want to teach. What are the methods of teaching for their children? It's very important that teachers feel that they have a freedom and autonomy to decide how the teaching and learning will be organized. And then the rarest one, the assessment thing, that in this country is in a very different state than back home in Finland, for example, because there are external assessments here that are basically reporting to parents and students and teachers and everybody what is learned in the school. And this is something that is taking much of this autonomy, this collective autonomy element away from teachers' work. So that's why I think that we need to, here in Australia, we need to seriously rethink and reconsider what type of NAPLAN, what type of assessment program we need, and what would it look like if it was to support and strengthen the collective autonomy that teachers have. And what is the role of the teacher assessments? Like in many countries now, they are relying more and more on the teacher's assessment in reporting parents and students and even authorities what the kids are learning. Just like in a medicine, that we don't have any standardized health checks, or we have few, but we are not really deciding the health or well-being of patients based on the national standardized tests. And it's the same thing, same problem with the teachers. So that is the kind of idea of the autonomy. Now, three things I'm leaving you with. The one is that we should think about teaching as a collaborative profession, and this is something that is probably very familiar to you, but these are conditions for moving towards this collective autonomy. So I'm just showing you this. This is from my good friends, colleagues, Andy Hargreaves' research. These three things that we need to try to work towards the collaborative culture, not only in my work and in my classroom, but in the entire institute or school or university where we are working. We need to have more regular feedback from what we do, and this is very well known in research and many other areas, that more accurate and timely feedback we get from what we do, the better we are in improving what we are doing. And then the collective responsibility for all the children. And this is something that is a hugely different culture here in Australia compared to Finland, where most of the teachers think that these are our children, and I'm responsible not only for the kids in my class, but I am responsible partly from all the children, all the students in my school. And it's a different culture that we need to work on. Then teaching as a leadership profession. This is something that's very important for you, and it has been very important for me to think about teaching also as a leadership thing. The teacher leadership is the concept over there. So what are we leading? So these are some of those things that we need, just like medical doctors, we need to understand how children learn. And this understanding of how kids learn is changing all the time. So that's something that we need to kind of keep up and catch up this knowledge. We need to lead students. It's not just teaching students something, but we need to lead their learning processes. We need to lead them well-being, as was mentioned earlier. And we need to be responsible for our own professional learning. And this is again something that teachers should not think that, I only do PD what is offered to me or what somebody asked me to do. I have to be active. It's part of the profession. And then finally, the last thing here is the teaching as a clinical profession. So it's a very important part of this whole picture here. So let me show you these things there. So the university-school partnership in preparing teachers is absolutely critical thing. And the closer this partnership is, for example, similar to the teaching hospital or the teacher training school within the university, the better. The master's degree is not enough itself. Again, there's a lot of research that's showing that whether teachers have an undergraduate degree or master's degree doesn't really make any difference. But we need to look at what this master's degree is. If the master's degree is just a little bit more top up to what the students do in the undergraduate degree, of course it doesn't make any difference. But if it's really digging into preparing teachers and equipping them with the research and scientific thinking needed in their profession, that's a different thing. And the extensive clinical training as part of the initial preparation is absolutely critical thing. And personally, I think that this type of move here in Australia, this has been tested in Melbourne. The University of Melbourne has done something like this, but throughout the country, this would move the teacher preparation to another level. And with this one, I say thank you very much. You have been fun.